everyone, it's Professor McGee. Welcome to week 2. So I'm here, I have some of your examples from the CRAP assignment on discussion board. I put them up here on my Padlet because I wanted to discuss a little bit more about alignment. I think contrast, repetition, and proximity are pretty easy to grasp, but alignment can be a little trickier. Okay, so one of the things you're going to really get sick of hearing me say and reading about is like, I really don't want you to use center alignment, not like a full center alignment. Like, so on your business card, I don't want to see a full centered alignment. It's not to say that center alignment can't be exactly the right thing or that it can't look good or be dynamic. The issue is that when we're new at this, we tend to default to a centered approach. And so we really just want to break out of that. So if you're going through your business card and you're doing the 4 versions as I ask, you can step back and say, you know what, I do want to try center. And if you like the centering and it works, then you should feel free to keep it. But I don't want it to be your first go-to. Okay, that's the thing. But here, let's look at, I want to tune you into some of the nuances within alignment that are really worth looking at when we're talking about. It's not just left, center, or right. It's the relationship between what goes on the left side of the canvas, the right side, the top, and the bottom. So let me show you a little bit more about what I mean. So this is from Tanya. Thank you, Tanya. And I have one above, but that's also from yours. This is just a centered cover, and it's pretty simple. But when we look up here, you notice how this connects right here, and this connects right here. So there is, this is that attention. Like if this was in here a little bit more, or that was in there a little bit more, it wouldn't make that invisible intersection. And that invisible intersection is sort of the underneath of what we look for in alignment, beyond the surface, right, left, or center. Okay, so let me show you a couple more examples. I'm going to come back to that one. That was also Tanya's. Let me come up here. This one was Cole's. And Cole, I think Cole actually took a picture of his old SAT book that he had lying around. So it's a little bit, I think that's why it looks a little bit bended or something. So this is interesting because if we look at this alignment, okay, now what has happened is the designer here turned this cover into a grid, right? So we have the left side and the right side. And on the left side, the whole side that's in blue, as you see, the official SAT study guide is in fact centered, right? I think it would even show a little bit more centered if it wasn't, again, if this wasn't like an actual photograph, but it was actually a JPEG of the cover. So this part is all centered, okay? And then this up here is not, and then this down here is left aligned, and this is left aligned. But if you look at what's happening here, the acorn is intersecting here. It's all intersecting. So you see this, it's all, even though I can't draw a line right now, it's an invisible line, and it's that line that creates this sense of connection from the top to the bottom. It's very subtle. It's not the kind of thing you notice unless you're in a class like this, frankly. But what I also like here too is that they took the official and they put it in. When you have text that are in shapes like this is typographic furniture. So they have this in typographic furniture, and I think because it actually is the one thing, the one piece of text that doesn't like intersect with us, it kind of highlights it a little bit more, the official, right? And also it's in a different color, so that's making it stand out a little bit more too. And then if we look at the bottom, we see here that this is actually, if we're looking at the whole design, it's a right alignment, right? But because it's really, we're looking at just this rectangle, right? Because this is a separate design space now. We look at it and it's actually really centered over here. And so this really stands out. It flows down from the pencil. So for real SATs, so this is, much more effective here than if they put this over here, right? Because it's flowing down out of the pencil. And so a centered alignment. Now again, it's centered within this space, right? If we're looking at the whole cover, it's right aligned. So again, so these are just some of the ways that we want to start to think about, alignment. And, within the design itself, like this part of the design is proportional, and, what kind of alignment is within that proportional section and what kind of alignment is in that proportional selection, because they're very clearly demarcated. Okay, let's look at a couple of, let's look at Tanya's other one with Prada. I thought that this was really such a great example here. So if we look at this, let me actually make that a little clearer. Okay, so we see that really this is not centered and this is not centered. So those of you who have photography or photography skills or who've learned about photography, you know the principle of the rule of thirds, and that is, I'm just going to say the really unofficial definition here, but it's taking this focal point and shifting it away from the center. So it's like if you to the right of the center or to the left of the center, it's actually just more visually interesting than putting the image in the center. Okay, and this is something that we'll talk a lot more about down the road. But let's notice though the positioning of this text here. Okay, not a lot of text, but let's look at, okay, if we look at where this text could be up here, this text could be down here, but it's here. And it does have a relationship to what's going on the right, because if we look at this, right, we see that the bottom here of that A, if we draw the line, it's really cutting right over here, right into the red, right above the pocketbook. So this is really not put here by accident, right? This is here because they want it to intersect with the start of the pocketbook here. And then we look here and we draw over, we're in the pocketbook. This top line here puts us on the strap. So again, alignment is about the relationship of all of the elements that are on the page. So this text has a relationship with this image, and it has a relationship with this part of the pocketbook, okay, because that's how they want your eye to move. So again, this is a little bit more than most of us think about alignment, right? Let's look at this. Let's go back up here. This is a really cool one. This was Alicia. So this alignment here, so this is all right aligned, and it's all right aligned, justified. So there's a very clear line that goes from the top to the bottom. See that? Yeah. So it's almost like this is the center, right? And then this text is over here. This is a nice example of a type that's serving a visual purpose, right? And then I also like this as a technique when you are designing, let's say something like this, where you're going to have it doesn't necessarily have to be a logo or whatever, but like a group of elements that should be in proximity, and to actually sort of make them all, like I like this here where it's coming and it's the full justification there. And then if you look here, the T does come down there and it does intersect. So it is a clear intersection. And then if we look here, even though this is completely different type, right? Completely different than what's over here. This is much bigger. It's decorative type, or it's stylized type. And then over here it's very small and it's plain. But look at the E lining up with the 80. Okay, so again, like you want to have a relationship. Now, did it have to be that one? No. Sometimes, I guess one way to do this would be to move this down a little bit so that it intersected, like with the bottom a little bit more down here. But I think that this really works. And because this lines up here, we've got that invisible line, we have that connection from the left to the right, and we've got the top to the bottom. And I really admire how the designer was not afraid to just leave this plain over here. A lot of people would just sort of swoop in and be like, I have to put something there. But so I felt it was really restrained. And this is just a fun design, and the way they're using the repetition to color and the dots. It's really clever. It's really nicely done. So thank you, Alicia. And then last but not least, I have Amanda's example. So let's look at Amanda's example. Okay, so this is a really interesting alignment. Okay, so we look at the way that these are all lined up, and then we look at the text, which is down here. So if you look at this, and you look at where the bottom of the foundation, this word here is, it actually directly comes in on the bottom of the foundation on the bottle. So you could actually do a straight line from down here over here to the F. And again, this is not accidental, right? This is how designers create, like unconsciously and subtly, visual relationships between text and visuals, or text and text on the other side, right? And then we look here, and this is centered underneath the foundation, and this is stretched out. This is the kerning, so when in the spacing in between letters. And again, I like this. I like this technique where you're kind of turning different elements into like one, you know, kind of like one kind of like square or something like that. And so then here, the if the bottom and the very bottom pretty much connects right here to the T. So again, it's not arbitrary, and that's really what I want you to understand, is that I'm always going to be saying to you, where's the really, like, if you've got text on the left and text on the right, I am going to look for that relationship. If you have an image on the left and text on the right, I'm going to look for where is that visual connection, right? Where do we do that? So, and it gets a little bit more, we'll get a little bit more into the rule of thirds later, the photography technique and grids and all of that. But I just want to start to make you aware of, you know, alignment and how it really translates in design, because it's really important in your business cards. Alignment is really, really going to be very apparent in your business cards. It's a very small space. There's a certain amount of text that you're going to get on there. So your alignment choices are really very critical, you know, and how you are making those connections between the top of the layout and the bottom and the left and the right. Okay, so I will be back at another time with another video, but this is this one, and I hope that this helps you understand a little bit more about alignment. Please reach out with questions.